Umashe Rashi, Parsha Shemini, sixth reading. We begin. Go into kosher laws now. What's a kosher animal, fish, and so on and so forth. Medaber Hashem Moshe, and Hashem spoke to Moshe Aaron and Aaron, Lamor, saying Aleihim to them. Rashi, El Moshe Aaron, to Moshe and to Aaron, LaMoshe Amar Shemer Aaron. So Rashi says it doesn't mean he spoke to both of them. He spoke to Moshe, and then Moshe should tell it over to Aaron. Lamar Aleihim. What should you say? What you should say to them? Amar Shemer Elazar Isamar. Hashem said that Aaron should say to Elazar Isamar, to his two sons. Or perhaps it means to say it all to the entire children of Israel. But when it says in the next verse, Davra b'nei Israel, speak to the children of Israel, so that speaking is in reference to the children of Israel. What does it then does it mean? So what does it mean to say to them? To them it means Levanov, to tell to his sons, Elazar to any Samar. That's what it means. Okay, that's verse number 1. Let's continue. People in Davida and Liba, please. Okay. Verse number 2. Dabru, speak, then speak, plural, El Bnei Israel, to the children of Israel, Lamor, saying, Zoisachaya, this is the creature, Asher Taichlu, that you can eat. Mikola Behema, from all the animals, Asher Alar, that are on the land. In other words, not in the sea. That we'll get to later. Okay, Dabru, Bnei Israel, speak to the children of Israel. That's what he just mentioned in the previous verse. So then the speaking in the previous verse was to the two sons of Aaron. As Kulam Hishva, he made all of them equal. God drew no distinction between Moshe, Aaron, Elazar, and Isamar. Leah is shluchim b'dibur zeh, in order to be emissaries, agents of this particular dictate. Because it says here, Dabru, speak, in the plural form, right? Usually, it says in the singular form that Moshe should speak, but it's Dabru, they should speak. Who's the they that's speaking? Meaning, Moshe, Aaron, Elazar, and Isamar equally have the mandate over here and the obligation to speak this to the children of Israel. Right? Since they were equal in their silence, interesting. In other words, accepting the decree of the death of Nadav and Avihu, right? We learned that earlier. They accepted the decree of God, the Ava with love. So God gave them now a mission. Look at that. When you accept from God things that are, misfortune, you accept it, God gives you a mission then to fulfill. Very fascinating. This is the life form. This is the creature. Lashachaim, term, the word of life. Why is it using a term of life form? Because the Jewish people cleave to God, and they fit to be alive. Therefore, they were separated from this impurity, and they were decreed upon to fulfill commandments, right? Perform commandments. But the nations of the world, loy amar klum. These commandments are given to the nations of the world that they can only eat certain things, right? Mashal that can be compared to a dog. Comes to visit the ill. These are the Midrash every tenchum, as the Midrash says. It's this food separates you from everyone else and makes you an eternal people ultimately. So Isachaya, again, Rashi brings these words, and this is the the creature, the life form. Malamed, this teaches that Moshe was holding on to the creature. Amara Isa Israel, and he would show it to the Jewish people. So he's that this is what you can eat, and this is what you could not eat. So he gave him a pictorial in real life. Even creeping creatures of the water, he held each and every species, and he showed to them, and likewise similarly with birds, that these shall be an abomination from you as birds, likewise with creepy crawling, and this is for you impure. It was like show and tell. Right. Mikol habehema. This is the creature from all of the animals. Malamed, this teaches us that a behema, an animal, the term behema, which is usually more a domesticated animal, is in the term of a chaya, of a beast, undomesticated. Okay. Oops. Okay. So what then now is a kosher animal? Kol mafreses parsa, anything who has feet that are cloven, b'sheisa shesa. So mafreses parsa is cloven, right? Well, hmm. Shesa means completely split. So the sole of the foot that is split, Shesa means completely split from top to bottom. Process my right. Shesa far size. The Milagera, it chews its cud. The Bahemo, in an animal. Right? Isa techelu, that's what you can eat. Rashi, let's see Rashi. So mafreses should be understood kitargumai kunta onkeles sedika, split. Parsa, hoof. In Old French, plante. Shesas shesa, that it's separate with a split. Meaning the hoof is divided from above to below entirely. Into two nails. Kitarguma, as Unclus explains, matalfa tilfin, hoofed with hooves. Sheyesh beparseis stukos melamayla, meaning the animal has hooves that are split at the tip. Be'inashasuzum muvdelas legamre. In others, you have some hooves that are not split completely, not divided completely. At the bottom, they are connected. So that's not kosher. So a donkey, it is not, the hoof is not split at all. A camel, it's split on top but not at the bottom. And a sheep is split through and through. Milas Geira. Mila means it brings it up, like from the word aliyah, to go up. And it what's it bring up? Geira, cud. Mila mikia it brings up and regurgitates the food from its innards. And returns it to the mouth of the dak to crush it and to grind it finely. Geira, cud, kachshmoy, that's its name. The Talchin Liya is Mikizras, and it might be from the root of Maima Nigrarim, waters that flow, because the cud flows like water, Shu Nigrar Acher Haped, that it flows towards the mouth, right, in the stomach, it regurgitates, so it's flowing back towards the mouth. It's Gumai Pisha. Okay. Targumai Pishra, Pishra. Al Yidei Agir, because it's chewing its cud, or Echal Nav, Nifsha Nimuach becomes dissolved. So Yankulis translates it to dissolve, because by regurgitating it, it becomes dissolved. Babehema, in the animal, Teva Yisera, the superfluous word over here, right? What does it need to say in the animal? Right, we know that it's an animal, a domesticated animal that chews its cud. So it seems to be superfluous. So the drasha to expound lahatias hashlil, to permit eating of the fetus, hanimsa b'mei imai, which is found inside of the mother. In other words, in such an animal, in the animal, that's what's kosher. Oh, what's in the animal? What does that mean? In other words, it's coming to emphasize something because it's an extra word. In the animal, it's a fetus. That the fetus is permitted. Right? In other words, it's emphasized there's something in the animal that's permissible because we know that it's an animal already. Okay. Verse number 4. However, this you shouldn't eat. What shouldn't you eat? What shouldn't you? Sorry, 1 second. What shouldn't you eat? Mimali agera, from those that chew their cud. Mafis is a parsa and has split hooves. Is a gumbo, the camel. Why? He mailager, because it does chew its cud. Who? Uparsa in nenamafris, but its hoof is not completely split. Tamehu lachem, it is impure for you. Further, there's a shafan. Ki mailagera, the shafan is a hyrax. It chews its cud. Who? Uparsa lo yafris, but doesn't have split hooves. Tamehu lachem, it is impure for you. There's our nevis and a hair. It chews its cud, but it doesn't have split hooves. Tamihu lachem, it is impure for you. Vesachazer, and the pig, kimafris, parisahu, it has split hooves. Shesar shesab, completely split hooves through and through. Hugera lo yigar, but it's cut. It doesn't chew. Tamihu lachem, it's impure to you. Right. The Rebbe brings out that the fact that Torah tells us these four things only, that have one of the two signs and no others, is in itself a statement that that's all there is. Seemingly, they haven't found another species that has from their flesh you cannot eat, and from its carcass do not touch, because it is impure for you. Okay, what does that mean? Let's see Rashi. From their flesh you shouldn't eat. I only need these four that were mentioned here, right? Shar behema tmeya. How about the rest of the impure animals, right? How do we know about them? That they don't have any sign of purity. In other words, they don't chew their cud or have split hooves. How do I know for them? Minayin. So this is where we use one of the ideas is called a kal v'chomer. It's one of the 13 principles that if something applies to a lighter law, then furthermore the heavier one, or more stringent one, lenient to stringent. If it applies to lenient, then all the more so for stringent. Stringent meaning it has more boundaries, so the law would apply, right? So ma'elu, or I don't know if boundaries is the right term for there. So what are these? That they have some signs of purity. In other words, either they chew their cud or have split hooves, one of them, asura, and they're forbidden. So all the more so something that doesn't have any sign of purity, they are for sure forbidden, right? But that is a one of the 13 principles that we read every morning in davening before the first Kaddish, right? That's a principle to use to learn something out. So in fact, biblically, all animals that don't have split hooves or chew their cud, don't have either. That's one of the signs. They are biblically prohibited, even though they're not mentioned here. Psaram, from their flesh. What does it mean, psaram, from their flesh? It should have said al besarim, concerning their flesh, you're not allowed to eat. Bazhar would be the negative commandment. So what does it mean, from their flesh? Meaning from their flesh, but not all of their flesh, not all of them. It's almost meaning not the bones, the gidim and the sinews, the karnaim and the horns, the talafim and the hooves. In other words, those things, even though this animal is not kosher, the flesh is not to eat, but you could have benefit from the skin, from the horns, hooves, sinews and bones. Don't touch their carcass. Yochel, I might think, based on this verse, that a non-Kohen, an Israelite in other words, are warned against, they're forbidden to come in contact with the carcass of an impure animal. I might think that, right? That an Israelite, in other words, not a Kohen. So that's what I might think. We're going to say it's not that way. Talmud Leimar, the verse says otherwise. Emar Kahanim, we're going to learn in a few parshas from now. Parshas Emar, that you say to the Kahanim Muzarim, that they have a prohibition against contact with the dead. Now, our verse over here is kind of open-ended, right? So you might think that it applies to everybody. But later on, we're going to learn that we get specific parameters to the Kohanim, to the priests, that they cannot become impure by coming in contact with a dead person or with a corpse or with a carcass of an animal. So that's quite clear that that's what the reference is. Then the question would be so what is this saying? If we already learned this elsewhere, then why is the Torah telling us over here that don't touch a carcass? We already know that a Kohen can't do that. Kamata matumas meis. Chamura lo yizer b'alei lakanim. And how do we know that a kohen doesn't, that if he causes impurity by contact with the dead, which is more severe, lo yizer b'alei only the kohen was prohibited in that, tumas in the velak kala, but so therefore a carcass of an animal, which is less severe, right? It's not a human that died. All the more so that the Israelite would not be prohibited. If the prohibition for coming in contact with a human corpse is only to the kohen and not to the Israelite, then all the more so the Israelite is not prohibited with a carcass to come in contact with. So then why does it say here, no, don't touch a carcass? And it's open-ended, meaning it's speaking about everybody, not just the kohen. I hope you got that. It means in the festivals. In other words, by the three festivals, there's a mitzvah of aliyah l'regel, of going up to Jerusalem. Then that's speaking to every Israelite, don't come in contact with a carcass. Why? Because you need to be pure for the festival. During the rest of the year, Israelite doesn't have to be pure. They can be impure, just they can't go to they can't go to the festival impure. They need to, whether they came in contact with a corpse or a carcass, they would have to go to the mikvah. And they would become pure that night. And they'd be able to go to the festival. Or if they want to eat something, Meiser Sheni, that they're taking to Jerusalem, second tithing, they also have to be pure. But that's only for the occasion, but not generally. As opposed to, we'll learn later by the Kohen is general. Okay, verse number 9. And this you shall eat from all that which is in the water. Anything that has fins, the kaskesses and scales, b'mayim, that are in the water, b'yomim, in the seas, b'necholim, in the rivers. Those you could eat. Rashi Sanaper, Elu sheshot b'hem. This is what makes them swim, meaning the fins. Kaskeses, Elu klipim. Right, this is the first time we've had these words. Elu klipim. These are the shells, hakvuyim boy, that are set in the body of the fish. Shenemar, as it says, kaskeses hu lavush. That wearing a coat of mail is wearing the scales is like a garment for the fish. Okay. Verse number 10. The chol asher ein loisenap, but anything that does not have a fin, the kaskesses in a scale, the yomim that are in the seas, but the cholim or in the rivers, we call sheretz b'mayim, from all of the creepy crawlers, of the crawlers in the water, and we call nefesh achaya, and anything that has any life to it, asher b'mayim, that's in the water, sheketz heim lachem, they are loathsome to you. Rashi sheretz b'chol makom sheshmoi mashmoi davar nomoch v'reichesh v'nad alaris. So what is this word sheretz? So he explains. We've had it before in creation, by creation. That what this word denotes a low being that creeps and moves along the earth. Sheket it should be loathsome to you. Mikol saram. From all of its flesh. Right? It should be loathsome to you. From his flesh you should not even and its carcass you should consider loathsome. Rashi in 11. Check it to you. There should be loathsome to you. Lesser es eruvehem. So it's repetitive here. We just said it. It's loathsome. Why do you have to repeat it? So Rashi says because even a mixture of this fish that's loathsome, im yesh behem, if they're in some other mixture, v'neisim tam, and they give flavor to the mixture, then this is also loathsome to you. It's also not kosher to eat. Right? That's what it means. In other words, we already said that this kind of fish that doesn't have these two signs is loathsome to you, and you can't eat from it. Now, sheitziu lachem, eel will be. You should consider it. And I was consider a mixture also loathsome, right? Of their flesh, from their flesh, ain't a muzhar, so not prohibited from eating alas and apir with regards to fins, ala thomas, and with regards to the bones. In other words, it's saying from the flesh. So the prohibition is not on fins that are not flesh, and not on bones that are also not flesh. And you shall abominate their carcass, meaning the rabbis you have chushim to include gnats. Shesanim that is strained over water. You have chushim and gnats that are in Old French moshiron. Oh boy, I'm sure I got that Old French wrong. Okay, verse 12. Again, repetitive, so clearly repetitive, right? Kol asher, anything that does not have senaper. What is senaper? Fins, kaskeset, scales. B'mayim, in water, shekesu lechem, it will be loathsome to you. Rashi's bothered, of course. Kol asher yeim b'aloi, anything that doesn't have matam labor. What is it coming to teach me that I don't know already? Shiochel, I might be able to think, ainly elishem mutar, that we know of nothing to be permitted, ella ma'ilasimanim shalai liyabasha, except that which brings the signs of purity on dry land. In other words, it retains its fins and scales. It needs to retain its fins and scale after it was taken out of the water. But what if it shed them in the water? Where do I know that it's permitted? It says anything that doesn't have fins and scales in water specifically. In other words, once you take it out of the water, if it was there, fins and scales in the water, although it shed it when it emerged from the water, mutter, that's permitted. Because the verse here is coming to say specifically, in the water you need to have fins and scales. I don't know, like in practicality, what that means. If there's such a fish that when you take it out of the water and let's say put it into your boat, and I don't know, maybe sometime later it sheds the scales, for example, or the fins for whatever reason. The fact that it did that, it's still kosher. Why? Because it fins and scales, this verse says, in water. Out of water, it doesn't have to have. Okay, so now we're going to foul. Yeah, we're good? And to these tishakitsu, you shall have, they should be loathsome to you. Mina oif, from fowl, lo yechalu, do not eat them. Sheketzaim, they are shekets, again loathsome. Right? Es a nesher, what is that? A nesher, a vulture. There's Paris, another kind of vulture, two types of vulture, the osnia and the osprey. Rashi in 13. So you notice over here, we're delineating that which is loathsome to you, specific animals. We did 4 of them when it came to the signs of split hooves and chewing cud. But here, this is only going to be, when it comes to fowl, pointing out that which is not kosher, without a sign. Do not eat them, to make you culpable. It says lo ye'echalu. It doesn't say lo yisaychlu. Before we said, do not eat. Here it says, do not have them eaten. Right? In the passive, reflexive form. What does it mean? Don't feed them to a minor. Shikach mashmai, that is the implication. Shelo yu nechon, that they should not be eaten. Meaning, not just you eat, don't eat it, but anybody should eat them. Al yadcha, meaning through you, right? In other words, through you, not you, in a reflexive manner. Or maybe it means something else, that you should not benefit from it. In other words, they should not be, since it's passive, it's reflexive, so maybe it means just, don't have any pleasure from it. Talmud Lay, remember the verse the verse comes and says later on in Deuteronomy that you should not eat. So we have to conclude that it's only in eating that it's not permitted. But in having benefit from it, you are allowed to. The mina, any fowl that it says the mina to its kind in the feminine form, the mina or to its kind in the masculine form, the mineo to its kind in another form of masculine. Yesh bar isayamin, there is no species, subspecies, she'ein daima zelazeh, they're not like one to the other. Not in their appearance or in their name. Amin echad, but yet they're all of one species. Okay, doesn't give an example here. In other words, it's not about deriving benefit. Not sure why he's bringing that here. Okay. The various other species of vultures, the types of species of crow, tachmos, shacha, neo, and the ostrich and the cuckoo, and the gull, and the various species of sparrowhawk. Rashi is old French for hawk. It's part of the case is a shalav is the anshuv, and the screech owl, and the cormorant, and the barn owl. Rashi in 17. Inshallah, Pesha of our sages explains there, Shayla the dogim, that this bird casts fish out, mina yam from the sea. Unkelus explains, Shayla nuna, they cast out fish. As goes sea fishing. And takes fish out of the water. Kais and Yanshuv. Aim. Aim is Yanshuv. We're talking about either they cry out at night, these days, Adam, and they have cheeks like a man. And there's another one that's similar to it, and it's called Ibu. All right. 18. The bat, the pelican, and the magpie. Rashi, we'll call them Kalva, Soris. The Daimel Akbar, it's similar to a mouse, Balayla, a parachas Balayla, and it flies at night. The Tim Shemes Amora Bishratzim. Shemes that's mentioned here about creepy crawlers. The Daimel, it's similar to it. The Inlayinaim, it has no eyes. And it's called a talp. 19. Esachisida Nafa Lamina Besaducha Tuchafis Besatale. The stork, various species of heron, hoopoe, and a talaf. Those that are bird lovers, I'm sure you know what all of these are. Hasida zu daya livana. This is a white daya, in Old French, Sijon. Lama nikra shma chasida. So why is it called a chasida, the kind one? That's what it means. Say Chassidus because it does kindness in Chaver Sehal with its companions. It's with yeah. She's a homunculus, Shalinune, the Casa. Oh no, sorry, you did. And I'll finish the Talp, Hasida. So I'm sorry. So it does kindness in Secha with its companions, but Mazonis is giving it food. Nafa, he daya ragzonis, this is a hot-tempered daya. Nearly, it seems to me that this is called dahero. But duchifis, duchifas, there's a tarnagol habar, it's a wild rooster. The carbolosa kapula, doubled over, in Old French, yirup. Why is it called a duchafas? Because there's a splendor. Hmm. So Shivgavosa, because its splendor is tied, Zuhi Karbalosa, splendor is its comb, Natura Nikra, a cutter of mounts. Okay. Shem Maisab, because of its deeds, Kamash Rabbeinu, as our sages explained, but Mosach is Gittin, 20. So we finish now with animals, the fowl. Now we're going into creepy crawlers. And any crawling creature that flies and goes on four, it is loathsome to you. Sheretz ha'oiv hem adakim ha'nemuchim v'reichashim. This is low creatures that are low and al arts, and they are low on the ground. Hem zvuvim, like flies, tzeirim, wasps, tushim, mosquitoes, ve'chagavim, grasshoppers. But from however this you could eat because sheretz ha'oiv, from all the crawling, flying things. That goes on four. Asher loy karayim, that has legs, minimal raglav, that go extend beyond their regular legs. Lanate behim al aretz, they should hop on the ground. Rashi 21. Okay. So larba raglaim on four legs, mimale raglav, above its legs, nomuch, samuch letzav, close to its neck. Yesh kamin shtei raglaim, it's as if it has two legs of a sort. Levad arba raglav, besides its four legs, kisharoit loif, it's minaretz, to use it to jump from the ground. Amischazik va'isam shnei kroim, extends its strength through those two jumping legs. Pareach, and it sends Yesharbe. There are many insects. Shaisan karan the gushata. But we're not experts. These are grasshoppers, and we're not experts on. He's saying. Because there's four signs of purity connected with them. Arba reglaim, four legs. Arba kanafim, four wings. The karsuloyim, and joints. And the jumping legs that are written here. Nafav chayfim al ruboy. Wings must cover most of the body. So these are the jumping legs that's speaking over here. But the wings must cover most of the body. All these signs are found in those grasshoppers that are among us. But they're among them that the head is long. And there are those that don't have a tail. And the name has to be a chagav. But then at this point, we don't know how to distinguish between them. In other words, between the long-headed and the tail grasshoppers that are called chagav, and those that are not. We don't know how to distinguish. 22, that's Ela Mehem, and of these, Teichlu is Arbe, from these you can eat. Right? The Arbe, red locust, Leminai, of its kind, it's a Solom, and the yellow locust to Leminehu, to its kind, it's a Chargol, and the gray locust to its kind, Leminehu, is a Chagav, Leminehu, and the white locust to its kind. And any four-legged flying creature that doesn't have this is considered loathsome. Rashi, Chol sheretz ha'oiv, ba'aved limed she'im yesh lo chamish tar. This comes to teach you that if it has 4, what if it has 5? It's also kosher. Well, titamu, and to these you shall become ritually impure. That if anyone touches its carcass, if you'll be impure until the night. So that's something new now that it's till the night. We didn't say that earlier, but I mentioned it, but it's not in the verse. These are going to mention further in the further passages. In their touching, you will become spiritually impure, meaning you have to go to the mikvah, right? What are they? Now we're going to the details. We finished with the kosher laws. Now we're going into what makes you impure by coming in contact with these carcasses. Anybody who carries their carcass, so now we add something. Not only do you have to go to the mikvah, but your clothes also have to be go to the mikvah. And you become impure until nightfall. Otherwise, you go during the day, but you're not pure until nightfall. We learned this a lot in Rambam. Anytime we speak about carrying, that you become impure, that's you're carrying the carcass, right? That's more stringent than just touching the right. Because when you carry, you have to purify your clothes. Before we spoke about touching the carcass, it only said you have to become pure, but not your clothes, because it's less stringent impurity. 26. To any carcass, right, that it's has split hooves, but it's not completely split. The gera inena maila, and it doesn't chew its cud. To meimheim lachem, they are impure for you. If you touch it, you become defiled, right? Impure. Again, how do you become impure? Only you. Rashi. $26. So it has split hooves and are not completely split. Gama like a camel. Shepar also is duka lamaila, that it is split at the top, but the bottom it's connected. The mochaberes, yeah, it's connected. So what is the Torah coming to teach you? The carcass of an impure animal, mitama transmits impurity, and in the end of the portion, it speaks in detail about behema tahira, of an unslaughtered animal, carcass of a pure animal, and it makes you impure. Here we're speaking about an impure animal that makes you impure. Later we'll speak about a pure animal that's a carcass, right, because it wasn't slaughtered properly, that it also makes you impure. Distinction. 27. And anything that walks on its four on its paws, 4 paws. Well, no, and any chaya, right, animal that goes on 4 to lechem, they are impure for you. Anybody who touches their carcass is impure until the evening. Al kapav can go and kill the chatul, like a dog, a bear, and a cat. Tmeim lechem. Lamaga, this is speaking about touching. Okay. But if you carry their carcass, then you have to wash your clothes, meaning immerse your clothes into the mikvah. And they are pure until the evening. They are impure for you. Now the Torah is going to delineate 8 different types of animals that have a impurity to them. So Zelachem, this is for you, Tame. That sheretz b'sheretz, that a creepy crawler, Allah aretz on the earth, a weasel, a mouse, a toad, and various species. Rashi in 29. Zelachem Tame, kol tumas halalu, all of these impurities are not speaking about eating, elatuma mamish, but literally spiritual impurity. You become impure by touching them. And they become forbidden as a result of the impurity of the carcass. Lechol truma, to eat truma v'kochim, and a holy sacrifice, likanos b'migdash, to enter into the sanctuary. So this is what it's coming to tell us, right? Pilot, weasel in Old French. Tzav is similar to a frog, a toad in Old French. 30. So a hedgehog, a chamelon, a lizard, and a snail. Rashi gives him an Old French. Here's on lizard, limas, talpe. 31. So the above mentioned creatures, right? They're among those are the creepy crawlers whose carcass you must consider ritually defiled. Anyone who touches them when they are dead will ritually become impurified until nightfall. Okay. Last verse. And if any of them that you will come upon, mayhem from the b'maisim when they're dead as a carcass, yitma, you become impure. Mikol kli eitz, whether it be an object of a wooden vessel, or beged, or a clothing garment, or a hide, a sack, or a sack, kol kli asher yasim malacha behem, any vessel that you do any kind of work with them, b'mayim and water, yuva, b'mayim yuva, in water they need to be brought, right? And you're impure until the evening, and then you become pure. B'mayim yuva, avlachat tvilas tameh hu letruma. So even after the immersion, it remains ritually impure with regard to truma. Adar. There's exactness over here that we learn in Rambam, which we're not going to go into because it's late. You become, after nightfall, when the nightfall happens,